Hey, it's Jake. In this video, we're going to talk about the importance of why you need to put in the reps in order to grow yourself and to grow your worship ministry. So I've got a number on the board here, 624. I'll give you like a second if you can guess what that number represents. Okay, here's what it represents. That's the number of times that I've led worship on a Sunday morning at a church. 624. It's a lot. It's a pretty high number. It's a big number. It's not as big as I feel like it should be at some points. I feel like I've done it like 10,000 times. But when I add up, about the past a little bit more than a decade, and I account for, vacation weekends or some seasons, transition seasons where I just wasn't leading on a regular basis, it's somewhere around that 600 to 700 number. And this is just a principle I've been really just discovering how important it is over the past few months. Is just the importance of putting in the reps, the repetitions of a certain activity in order to get good at that and achieve mastery, as well as just get the results that you're going for and hit the goals that you're going for. And it's hard because we live in an instant gratification society. We want things now. We want things to happen now. But all the best things in life come over time and come with lots of repetition in order to master certain skills and to get these goals and results. So in this video, I just want to share with you some ways, and hopefully this is just encouragement to just kind of keep doing what you're doing if you're already doing these things. But I just want to show you some ways that I've discovered, when you put in the reps with a certain activity over time, some cool things start to happen. So there's a couple ways here to put in the reps. Let's talk about your own growth and how you need to put in your reps so that you can flourish as a person and as a leader. So the first area that we need to put in the reps is really with our spiritual life, right? This is a really important area, and we all hopefully know that when you become a follower of Christ, you're not magically going to be a sanctified person, perfectly sanctified person who doesn't need to work on their spiritual growth and development. We know we're broken, we're sinful, our hearts long after the wrong things, so we have to put in the disciplines so that our hearts long after God's kingdom instead of the things of this world that often are very destructive to our lives. So my favorite quote is from Eugene Peterson. It's actually not a quote. I think it's actually just a title of a book. And the book he has, it's called Long Obedience in the Same Direction. So that's how he describes the life of discipleship in following Christ. That this is something that again, we live in a world that wants short-term gratification and results. But even our Christian life and spirituality, we're not going to really see fruit of that overnight. Maybe sometimes God will move powerfully and drastically and suddenly, but in most cases, this is something that is supposed to be integrated into our everyday life over a long period of time, and that's when we start seeing the fruit of discipleship, when we actually realize, wow, I love God more. I love his people more without even really thinking about it, right? I've noticed this happening to myself too. When I compare 29-year-old Jake to 19-year-old Jake or 9-year-old Jake, right? That's something that just comes with age. And again, consistency of going to church, reading the Bible, learning more about the Bible, serving, doing all these practices that help us bear the fruit of the Spirit. So there's a lot of cool things that happen when we have that long obedience in the same direction. The next area too to put in some reps for your own growth personally, I found a lot is with our both our physical and like kind of our mental health, intellectual health. All of these things are kind of tied together, but especially the physical health, right? Like a couple of years ago, I got convicted about just kind of being a little tubby, not being in shape. Just wasn't really happy with the way I looked, the way I felt, the energy levels I had. So that's when I decided to start going to the gym. I go to CrossFit because I can't go to the gym and try to make up a routine myself. I'd rather show up at a place and someone just tells me what to do. I don't have to think about it. I just have to deal with the pain and suffering that comes along with it. But then at the end of it, it feels really good. It's a great way to end your day. So I just realized I needed to get into this, but I also knew getting into a regular workout routine that this wasn't going to be a go work out once, then I'm set for the year, right? Like, that's just not the way it works. It's even working out, it's got to be consistent reps, obviously actually within kind of in a micro picture of that with the actual workout itself, right? We don't just do like one power clean or one push press or whatever. Usually you do multiple sets and multiple reps of those things, even within that 20-minute workout or however long it is. So from a micro standpoint, there takes a lot of reps, but then also from a macro standpoint, to get fitness results, health results, like it has to happen over months is when you actually begin to start seeing the results. And the same thing too comes along with dieting, right? Like, there's some like quick diets out there. I think if you make some sudden changes to your food intake, yeah, you're gonna see results in maybe days or weeks. But for the most part in my life, where I wanna overall eat healthy like 90% of the time, but still have those like 10% cheat days or cheat times, I still like ice cream and Chick-fil-A and things like that, then yeah, that's going to take months before we actually see the results. And I've seen that. It's been really awesome. Now we're about 2.5, 3 years of being pretty consistent with these things. That's when I finally I've felt the best I've ever felt, have had energy levels that I've never had before. It's been really rewarding because I put in those reps over time. The next area, personally, where you need to put the reps in would be musicianship, right? So this is kind of ingrained automatically into the nature of worship ministry because we have to play every single week. We're learning songs every single week, all that. So a lot of this does happen kind of organically, but especially when you are new. Like when I got going in worship ministry, I was a sophomore, junior in high school. I barely knew how to play guitar. But what was kind of awesome is when I started to lead worship on Sundays, and my pastor at our small church, he was doing it, and he saw I had potential. He's like, hey, why don't you do it? I'm like, great, I'm completely unqualified. He knew that, but he had faith in me that I could figure it out. And I was literally learning new chords depending on what new songs I was gonna be learning and playing that Sunday. And I was putting in the reps from day one, just diving into it. And then over the next couple of weeks and months, like I really, really got comfortable. By the time I graduated high school, I didn't even have to think twice about guitar and singing and all that stuff. So even it's important to find situations that force you to put in the reps, or else things will just crash and burn. You just can't do it at all. So, and then of course, when I get to college, I put a lot more time putting in the reps there with, vocally. That was a big area for me that I've needed to work on in college that helped me out. So I had voice lessons. I sang in choir. That was like 5 days a week. I was singing hours a day, multiple days a week. And that just gave me so much progress in how to use my voice, how to get better, all those things. Same thing with guitar as well, any instrument. And then this kind of leads to the next one, technology. So, I've probably been using Ableton Live now for about 4 years solid. And let's say 3 of those years, I built the sets every week, because now Ashton builds those sets for us. But I got really quick at it. I got really good at it. And that's because I have built like 150 set lists in Ableton Live, right? So with technology, you got to put in the reps to get really good at that type of stuff. Same thing with like running a sound console. I put in many reps setting up a sound system, being at a church plant. I remember early in the day, that's how I got good at learning sound when I was younger, was I feel like I would constantly, like in our church, and again, thank God I had a great pastor back in the day, Pastor Wall. Thank you so much for your patience with me back then. But I had these big dreams. I was a late high school leading worship, and I got really kind of geeked out about sound system stuff, and I was like, we need to get this piece of gear, that piece of gear, and then I was like, let's just like redo how we configure everything. So I probably tore down our sound system and put everything back up like, 20 times over the course of 2 years at this church. But that's how I learned how all these connection works, how microphones work, how the routing works on the mixing consoles, because I put in the reps. And even to this day, I'm still doing that with Mission Lakewood. We're still constantly tearing things apart, rebuilding it, trying to make it better and better. And that's what helps develop the competence. And then finally, another area is kind of for your own personal leadership development is with other people. So putting in the reps, leadership stuff. We've talked about that a lot on this channel, about, people only go with leaders they know. So making sure that you're having, opportunities, multiple opportunities in your life to speak into other people's lives and develop them, because that takes practice. Like, leadership takes practice. And I always find myself leaving a certain situation with someone I'm leading, being like, okay, how could I have handled that better? And then the next time I adjust accordingly, right? So putting in the reps, even with people and leading other people. And then there's also just like putting in the reps for the spiritual growth of your congregation. So a lot of these things we talked about are for your own growth. And there's probably more things up here, but these are all that I thought about when I was making this outline. But then there's also like this thinking about the spiritual life of your congregation, right? And how you're helping them grow over time. So the first way, the first thing I think about as a worship leader is like, we're putting in the reps when it comes to like the songs that we're picking and introducing for our congregation. And sometimes it takes a couple of reps for the congregation to pick up on a new song. So don't just introduce a new song and it falls flat the first Sunday and think, oh, this is never going to work. My general rule of thumb is, if after 3 or 4 times it really just feel like it's not working, then yeah, let's not do it anymore. But it usually takes 3 or 4 times for the congregation to finally feel familiar with that song and connect with that song. Maybe it's even more. Maybe it's like a song where, I've seen this happen before, where it's a song, it's like an older song. I'm not even a huge fan of it, but it's still good enough to be in our rotation. And we've been doing it for like a year. And then finally I just see the congregation really singing it out, really, participating, raising their hands and stuff like that, showing other signs of engagement with that song. But that only came through the repetition. Also the same thing with like liturgy. What you are doing as a worship leader, you're crafting this spiritual diet every single week for your congregation. Hopefully that's a diet that promotes just better discipleship. People are gaining more clarity around their relationship with God. They are feeling spiritually refreshed because of forgiveness and God's grace and how God's working in their lives. And like, we need to, number one, be planning out the order of service and the liturgy in a responsible way, but also realizing that this type of stuff to shape a congregation's life, this isn't like a weeks or months thing. This is like a multiple years type thing. And that's where I think, for those of you who especially have been worship leaders at a church for a long time, like 5 to 10 years, I think that's where you've probably seen some cool stuff happen in the spiritual life of your congregation. I was talking to a worship leader the other day for our podcast, and he's been at this church for 15 years. So imagine like the change in the life of the congregation you'll see, after 15 years of leading worship. But all these things just take time. So you just got to keep putting in the reps, keep being faithful to leading your congregation, even when in the hard seasons, right? And that goes back to all these things, whether it's your own personal life or leading the congregation, leading others. Like, you can't just change course and give up even when it gets tough, right? And that's the whole point of like, you just trust the process and trust the system of putting in more reps, especially when those reps are the good things, like the healthy things to be doing. Just keep doing it. No matter how you feel, no matter what the circumstances are, just keep doing it. Just keep putting in those reps. And, don't be afraid to change things up as you go. If you do feel like you've been doing something for a while, like implementing some new tool or strategy, and wait till you have enough time to really know, you have enough data to know it doesn't work. Don't be like, hey, we're gonna try to run clicking tracks, and then the first week it felt a little uncomfortable, our band didn't like it, and then just completely give up on it. That's a very immature thing to do. You have to give it time. You have to tell your team this too. Hopefully they should be able to understand this. Like, you can't magically just change things overnight. It takes repetitions. And the other thing too, I just feel like so many people get hung up on is just taking action, and like, you kind of get analysis paralysis about things. So don't just stand there and just be over critical or analyzing about what song should I pick, what text should I implement. you know, whatever questions you feel paralyzed by, just do it. Like just step out in faith and do it and make it happen, and know that you can adjust as you go, and that if something bad happens, most of what we do is not like a life-threatening decisions, right? Like we're leading worship, right? There's spiritual implications to these things, but it's not a life-threatening decision if you're going to implement Ableton or Auto-Tune or something like that. So just dive in, do it, and take action. And one last kind of example of this, I think, when again I was talking to, this is fresh in my mind, I was talking to that worship leader a couple days ago for the podcast, and I know this is true for a lot of ministries that write songs for albums, right? So this worship leader, he's a guy, he heads up vertical worship, so you've probably maybe sang some of their songs before. I know I have. The really big, thriving worship ministry, lots of cool stuff happening. And he's telling me how in order to get down to like the 10 songs or whatever that's on their album, they had to write like 70 songs. So can you imagine the amount of time and effort and repetitions of songwriting that had to go into making that final product? And then out of those 10 songs, like probably one or two of those is going to be a song that like sticks with like not only their church, but also that those are going to be the songs, like the hits that kind of stick with other churches. And those are the ones that we pick up. We see that they're on like praise charts, what's hot list or whatever. You know, just all that work, all those repetitions. Imagine how many horrible songs were written by their team in order to get to the point for them to produce that much quality of work. So I hope that leaves you encouraged, that if you feel like you're just doing a lot of stuff and not producing the results you want yet, just understand that, yeah, things don't happen overnight. And if you just keep putting it in, keep putting in the reps, whether that's musically, spiritually, with leadership, with tech, some cool things are going to happen. So I just want to encourage you guys, keep putting in the reps, keep taking action, and the magic will happen. So if you want to, hey, if you want some help, if you want some guidance with these things, like making sure that you're putting in the reps for like doing the right activities and the things that will actually produce the great results in your worship ministry, that's where I'd love to actually connect with you and chat with you and see if our coaching and training program is a good fit for you and your worship ministry. So I'm going to put a link below this video. It's going to be a form. You can tell us more about your ministry, your situation. If it sounds like we can help, then you'll be directed to a page where you can schedule a call with myself or my team members. And then from there, we can see if our program is a good fit, because we want to work with worship leaders who are willing to put in the work, but maybe they just need that guidance to kind of help accelerate them towards the end goals that they have. So if you don't want to put in the work for your ministry or your personal growth, then like don't bother applying, because we'll just delete your application and your appointment, and we won't be able to do that. But if you have a good work ethic, and you just want the clarity and guidance of how to apply that time and energy that you have towards your ministry to see it thrive and flourish, then click that link below, apply today, and we'll talk soon.